Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads. Back to the Future wasn't just a sci-fi adventure. It was a chaotic, risk-filled gamble that nearly collapsed under its own weight. Behind Marty McFly's skateboard, Doc Brown's wild-eyed genius, and that roaring DeLorean was a set plagued with broken bones, lost millions, near firings, and secrets the studio didn't want you to know. From midnight reshoots to a lead actor swapped mid-production, this film was as turbulent as its time-traveling plot. So buckle in, because today we're revealing 20 weird facts about Back to the Future. And wait until you hear the bonus fact, a twist so strange, it sounds like it belongs in an alternate timeline itself. Let's start where the chaos truly began. The wrong Marty McFly. When Back to the Future began filming, Michael J. Fox wasn't Marty. The role was played by Eric Stoltz, a serious method actor who threw himself into the part. But Stoltz wasn't funny. His dramatic approach clashed with the film's comedic tone. Director Robert Zemeckis later admitted, Eric is a magnificent actor, but he wasn't Marty. After 6 weeks of costly shooting, Universal executives made the brutal call, fire Stoltz. Every scene he shot had to be reshot with Michael J. Fox, costing millions. For cast and crew, it was déjà vu, living the same scenes twice, like a cruel time loop. Audiences never saw Stoltz's version, but a few frames still exist, haunting outtakes like ghost footage from a parallel reality. Michael J. Fox worked 2 jobs at once. Landing. Michael J. Fox was both a triumph and a curse. He was locked into Family Ties, TV's #2 sitcom, which wouldn't release him for a film. The compromise was brutal. Fox worked days on Family Ties, then shot Back to the Future at night. His schedule often ran from 9 a.m. until 2 or 3 a.m., with little sleep in between. I was young enough to think I could do anything, Fox later recalled. Crew members often carried him off set when he literally collapsed. His exhaustion was real, visible in some takes, but his energy on screen never wavered. What audiences saw as Marty's boundless youthful energy was often just pure adrenaline keeping Fox upright. The DeLorean almost wasn't a DeLorean. The time machine is one of cinema's most iconic cars, but it wasn't always destined to be a DeLorean. Early drafts described it as a refrigerator. Yes, a time-traveling fridge powered by nuclear blasts. Spielberg and Zemeckis scrapped the idea, worried kids might crawl into fridges and get trapped. Enter the DeLorean DMC-12, already infamous for its gull-wing doors and stainless steel body. It looked futuristic, almost alien. On screen, it became a legend. Off-screen, it was a nightmare. The heavy doors often jammed, trapping actors inside. Firefighters were once called to set to pry open the gull wings. What seemed sleek and stylish on film was a clunky, temperamental beast in reality. Crispin. Glover's rebellion. George McFly was as quirky off-screen as on. Crispin Glover, who played him, clashed constantly with the director and producers. He hated the ending, where Marty returns to a wealthy, perfect family. It promotes materialism, Glover argued, refusing to accept it as moral. He reportedly caused chaos on set, improvising bizarre movements and demanding changes. When he refused to sign on for the sequels, Universal replaced him with a look-alike, burying his face in prosthetics and using old footage. Glover sued, winning a landmark case about an actor's likeness. To this day, his rebellion shapes Hollywood contracts. Stunt gone wrong, Marty almost crushed. One of Marty's coolest stunts nearly became his last. In the scene where he clings to the back of a Jeep on his skateboard, stuntman Bob Yerkes performed the move. But on one take, the Jeep suddenly braked. Yerkes was nearly flung under the tires, inches from being crushed. Crew members screamed, convinced they were about to witness tragedy. Luckily, Yerkes rolled free at the last second. The near accident was hushed, but it shows the danger of practical stunts in the 1980s. No CGI, just guts, grit, and the risk of broken bones. Or worse, Doc Brown almost had a chimpanzee. Christopher Lloyd's eccentric Doc Brown is unforgettable, but in an early draft, his lab assistant wasn't Einstein the dog. It was a chimpanzee named Shemp. Producer Sid Sheinberg killed the idea instantly. "Movies with chimps never make money," he famously told the team. He was right, at least in 1985, when risky animal actors often derailed productions. Einstein the dog proved to be a reliable choice, even stealing scenes with his calm expressions. But buried in early concept art is a bizarre vision of Doc Brown tinkering with gadgets, while a chimpanzee scribbles equations on a chalkboard. Imagine the chaos, a time machine powered by bananas instead of plutonium. It never happened, but it shows how close Back to the Future came to being a very different movie, more slapstick than science fiction. The clock tower scene nearly burned down. The climactic lightning strike at Hill Valley's courthouse is pure cinematic magic. But filming that sequence was chaos. Heavy rain machines drenched the backlot, electrical rigs sparked dangerously, and a cable fire almost torched the set. Crew members scrambled with extinguishers, fearing the clock tower itself would go up in flames. Christopher Lloyd later said the atmosphere was as tense as the scene itself. Ironically, the set had a Hollywood history. It was originally built for To Kill a Mockingbird. Destroying it would have been a disaster for Universal. By the end, the drenched crew looked like they had survived a thunderstorm themselves. What audiences saw as thrilling suspense was built on a razor's edge of danger. Michael J. Fox's dangerous guitar scene. The Johnny B. Goode performance is one of Marty McFly's most iconic moments. But Fox didn't just fake it. He practiced guitar for weeks, learning the fingerings for authenticity. The real guitar sound was dubbed later by musician Mark Campbell, but Fox played live on set. The danger came when he leapt and slid across the stage. During rehearsals, he miscalculated and slammed his head against an amplifier. Crew rushed in, fearing a concussion that could halt filming. Fox laughed it off, insisting they shoot again. His raw energy is unforgettable, but beneath it was real risk. That moment when Marty tells the stunned crowd, "I guess you guys aren't ready for that yet," carried double meaning. Fox himself had pushed his body further than it should have gone. The studio thought it would flop. Not everyone believed in Back to the Future. Universal executives thought the script was too soft. Disney rejected it outright, calling the mother-son kiss too risque. Other studios wanted more raunch, suggesting Marty should be a raunchy college kid chasing girls. Even when Universal agreed, they doubted its potential. Test screenings changed everything. Audiences erupted in laughter and applause, demanding more. Word of mouth spread, and suddenly the film that nobody wanted became the movie of the summer. It wasn't just a hit. It dominated 1985, grossing over $380 million worldwide. The irony? The same executives who doubted it later demanded 2 sequels. What began as a project shuffled between studios became one of the most profitable franchises in film history. Christopher Lloyd almost didn't play Doc Brown. It's hard to imagine anyone else as Doc Brown, but Christopher Lloyd nearly turned it down. He had just wrapped Star Trek III and was reluctant to dive into another eccentric role. His wife pushed him to reconsider, saying, "You'd regret missing this one." Lloyd showed up at the audition, barely skimming the script. But when he read Doc's lines out loud, he felt an electric jolt of recognition. It was one of those rare times when the part just clicked, he recalled. Still, he almost quit midway through production, exhausted by long nights and heavy prosthetic makeup for older Doc. Had he walked away, the film's eccentric heart would have been gone. Instead, Lloyd became part of movie history, one great Scott at a time. Lea Thompson's makeup nightmare. Lea Thompson, who played Lorraine, endured grueling hours in the makeup chair. To portray her older self in 1985, she wore prosthetics that sometimes took 4 to 5 hours to apply. The heavy latex was suffocating under the hot lights, and she could barely move her face. Thompson later joked she felt like an alien in her own skin. The prosthetics also made it hard for her to eat between takes. Crews often had to feed her with straws or small bites of food. Yet her performance is seamless, shifting from teenage flirtation to middle-aged resignation. What audiences didn't realize is that she was fighting discomfort the entire time. Lorraine's evolution on screen was convincing not just because of acting skill, but because of the painful artistry happening behind the scenes. The Libyan terrorists scene almost sparked controversy. One of the film's most shocking sequences is the terrorist attack in the mall parking lot. At the time, portraying Libyan terrorists was a risky choice, reflecting real-world tensions in the 1980s. Universal executives feared backlash, and some countries debated censoring the scene entirely. On set, the chase was filmed with practical gunfire effects and a VW van that kept breaking down mid-shoot. Crew members worried the sequence went too far for what was otherwise a light-hearted family film. Yet it stayed, adding genuine danger to Marty's adventure. Today, the sequence feels jarring, part comedy, part thriller, but at the time, it was almost cut altogether. What's strange is how this darker moment helped set the stakes, proving the film wasn't just slapstick. It had real danger pulsing underneath. The Twin Pines Mall time travel Easter egg. Back to the Future is full of clever details, but one of the most brilliant is hidden in plain sight. Early in the movie, Marty meets Doc at the Twin Pines Mall. After Marty goes back to 1955, he accidentally drives the DeLorean through Old Man Peabody's beloved pine tree. When Marty returns to 1985, the mall sign now reads Lone Pine Mall. The change is never spoken aloud. It's just there for sharp-eyed viewers. Production designer Lawrence Paul confirmed this was intentional, a nod to the ripple effects of time travel. It was a tiny detail, but it delighted fans who noticed. In a film filled with spectacle, it's this kind of subtle world-building that made Back to the Future so endlessly rewatchable. One tree, one sign, one perfect Easter egg. The dance scene took weeks to shoot. The enchantment under the sea dance wasn't just another set piece. It was one of the most difficult sequences of the entire shoot. The lighting had to shimmer like an authentic 1950s school gym, complete with hand-painted banners and twinkling lights. Extras wore authentic vintage costumes, some rented from collectors. Filming stretched across 3 exhausting weeks, with Michael J. Fox often working until dawn. Crew members later admitted the heat from the lights made the room unbearable, and extras fainted during takes. Yet the result was magic. The romantic climax, where George finally punches Biff and Marty plays his iconic guitar solo, feels effortless. What audiences didn't see was the sweat, exhaustion, and endless repetition required to create one of cinema's most beloved high school dances. Biff's punch nearly went too far. The moment George McFly finally stands up to Biff is the film's emotional payoff. But Tom Wilson, who played Biff, almost took a real knockout punch. Crispin Glover was so intense in character that during one rehearsal, he swung too close and clipped Wilson's jaw. Wilson recalled, "I saw stars for a second." Thankfully, no major injury occurred, but tension lingered. The scene was so important that Zemeckis insisted on dozens of takes to get the perfect slow-motion fall. Wilson wore extra padding and a stunt rig, but he later admitted the scene left him sore for weeks. Ironically, this unscripted aggression added to the realism. When George's fist finally connects, it's not just a movie punch. It's the culmination of raw energy boiling over on set. 16. The title nearly got changed. Believe it or not, Universal's president Sid Sheinberg hated the title Back to the Future. He thought audiences wouldn't understand it and suggested renaming it Spaceman from Pluto. His reasoning? The spaceman angle tied into Marty's alien prank on George, and Pluto sounded more sci-fi. Spielberg found the suggestion ridiculous, but knew Sheinberg's power. His solution was sly. He sent a memo thanking Sheinberg for his joke, treating it as a gag rather than a real order. Sheinberg, not wanting to lose face, dropped the idea. Had Spielberg not played it cool, the film might have gone down in history with one of the most baffling titles ever. Imagine trying to buy tickets for Spaceman from Pluto. The absurdity proves how fragile movie history can be, saved by a single clever memo. The DeLorean's infamous breakdown. The DeLorean may look sleek on screen, but behind the scenes, it was a nightmare. The cars were notoriously unreliable, even without time circuits. On set, they constantly broke down, stalled, or refused to start. The gull-wing doors were so heavy they sometimes trapped actors inside, forcing stagehands to pry them open. Crew members had multiple backup cars, each modified for different stunts. One for driving, one for interior shots, one with rigged effects. Still, malfunctions slowed production daily. Michael J. Fox once joked that the DeLorean was the worst star car in Hollywood history. Yet its flaws became part of the legend. In a way, its clunky, unpredictable nature made it the perfect metaphor for time travel itself. Dangerous, thrilling, and never entirely under control. Hidden Pepsi and Nike deals. Product placement in Back to the Future wasn't accidental. Pepsi and Nike both struck deals that integrated their brands into key scenes. Marty famously orders a Pepsi Free in 1955, confusing the diner clerk. Meanwhile, his futuristic Nike sneakers became iconic, later inspiring a real-life Nike Mag release. These weren't just background props. They were deliberate studio deals to fund the film. At the time, some critics accused the movie of being too commercial. But these brands helped anchor Marty as a relatable teen while subtly hinting at the culture clash of time travel. Ironically, both Pepsi and Nike would later cash in again when the sequels featured futuristic products. What looked like quirky throwaway details in 1985 were actually big-money business deals shaping pop culture for decades. The original ending was too dark. In the earliest drafts, the movie ended very differently. Instead of lightning striking the clock tower, Doc and Marty tried to use a nuclear test site to power the DeLorean. The plan was to drive the car straight into a blast zone. It was dark, expensive, and far too complicated for budget and tone. Spielberg and Zemeckis scrapped it, replacing it with the clock tower climax, simpler, safer, and much more dramatic. The nuclear ending later influenced Back to the Future Part 3's desert finale, But had they stuck to the original draft, the film might not have had the same universal appeal. Instead of an uplifting ending with sparks and triumph, audiences would have watched a bizarre, bleak gamble. Thankfully, lightning struck at the right time. Christopher Lloyd's emotional farewell scene. When Doc Brown sends Marty back to 1985, the goodbye on the street was as emotional for the actors as it was for audiences. Christopher Lloyd later admitted he felt real sadness filming it, imagining never working with Fox again. He improvised much of Doc's frantic waving and pacing, channeling his own reluctance to let go. Crew members described the set as quiet during that final shot, with many fighting back tears. Of course, the sequels brought them back together, but in 1985, no one knew if the movie would succeed. The emotion that comes across on screen isn't just performance, it's genuine. In that moment, Christopher Lloyd wasn't just Doc saying farewell to Marty. He was an actor saying goodbye to a role he thought he'd never play again. The hidden secret of the DeLorean's sound. The time machine's eerie roar wasn't from the car at all. Sound designer Ben Burt combined noises from a jet engine, the hum of a movie projector, and even the crash of a hammer on dry ice to create its signature whoosh. The DeLorean's audio was a patchwork of strange sources, none of them automotive. The sound became so iconic that fans instantly associate it with time travel itself. Burt once joked, "That car never ran right, but it sure sounded like it could rip through time." It's a hidden reminder that what we hear on screen often shapes our memory more than what we see. In truth, the DeLorean wasn't just metal and wheels. It was an orchestra of science fiction, built from real-world scraps. Back to the Future was never just a time travel comedy. It was a battle against chaos, doubt, and danger that somehow created cinematic perfection. Its legacy isn't just the DeLorean or Great Scott. It's proof that even the most broken productions can change pop culture forever. If you enjoyed these revelations, hit that like button, subscribe for more hidden Hollywood stories, and remember, when it comes to movie secrets, the future is always just one weird fact away.